Now it's time to bring in Dylan Butler. There's Dylan Butler.
What's up?
How was your playoff action on the weekend?
Pretty amazing, actually.
So do tell, sir. Do tell.
So, Chaminade, Kellenberg, they have the same religious order, so kind of like a brotherhood rivalry type of a situation between those two. It was a game that a lot of people were hoping would happen. They didn't play during the regular season. So there was anticipation for the potential matchup, and then the matchup came, and it was even better than anticipated. Packed house at the stadium. It came down to this. It was Chaminade with like a 2nd and 7 trailing. What was the score? 17-13 with 9 seconds left in the fourth quarter at the Kellenberg 20.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Quarterback rolls out, nothing left. His primary or his main receiver double covered, rolls it to the right, slings it, finds Pat Bruno for his lone reception of the game. At the 3, he goes towards the corner, dives towards the end zone. Touchdown Chaminade, no time left on the clock, and the Flyers win.
Wow. See, now those are the ones that you sit there and you hold on to for submissions for regional sports awards, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. I have I don't know how I could even get you that call, but I do have it was tweeted out.
Okay. See, now you've got me intrigued as a fellow high school
I think you'll like the call. I think you would like it.
Okay.
Let me see if I can somehow get that to you. So, great game, great ending. The funny thing about Pat Bruno is he doesn't get a lot of targets. But like 2 of Chaminade's biggest wins this year, he's had the winning touchdown. So, pretty crazy. Maybe get Pat Bruno the ball a little bit more. But that was so here's the thing, right? Like that was Saturday going into MLS Cup. That's like how crazy that was. Do I just send this to you in the chat? Is that how I would do this?
Yeah, you just sit there, send the link in the chat. Yeah, just cut, paste, copy, and dive in. Yeah, there it is. All right, so private chat. Okay, Varsity Media. There it is. All right, so I'm going to listen to that once this is over. So you go.
If there was a way to even play it for the public, I don't think there is, though, right? Can you?
Yeah, well, there is, but what?
Right.
But the thing is that I would end up with my voice distorted for some strange reason.
I heard that on the ad. Yeah.
So that was weird, and so we're having. I'm wagging my finger at StreamYard, and they're sitting there going, "Well, is your computer close to your head end? You know, those kinds of things." And I'm like, "Yes, it's happening in separate elements. So this is a quirk in your system that you please need to address."
Yeah.
But no, what we'll do is we'll play it for everybody tomorrow. We'll do that. We'll play the call for everybody tomorrow with Dylan Butler going berserk on a play-by-play call. So you go from a buzzer beater, to another buzzer beater, and all right. So I'm just going to skip like the first 60 minutes. And go to the second 60.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. It was like over here. I mean, it was what we anticipated. Philly was going to frustrate the ever-loving hell out of them. We did get the early card from Ismail Elfath, but he tried to manage the game where you wouldn't have cards dictate who would be hanging around for a final. When all hell started breaking loose with set pieces, what was going through your mind?
Well, from the person working the desk, my initial thought was, cool, a winner. Like I didn't care where it came from. So I was like, great, Philly broke the deadlock. Awesome, right? Like, what a great story. Jack Elliott's the MVP. What are all our storylines? We don't have to worry about extra time. and then that didn't, right, obviously happen. So.
Don't have to worry about extra time.
But then honestly, well, like once you were there, like then it's just like, look, we're in it for the ride, right? Like we're in it for at least 30 minutes. So sit back and enjoy. Obviously, it's not golden goal or things like that. So at that point, it's just like, all right, let's be entertained, and we certainly were.
Well, and I mean, you sit there. I mean, Jack Elliott had a hell of a game.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and thinking, okay, maybe Elliott is going to be your MVP. Then everything
had that score held up, he was the MVP.
And you had all of the craziness involving Maxime Crépeau,
yeah,
and McCarthy, and I give Fox a lot of credit for not wanting to sit there and dive into a replay. Do something Zapruder-ish,
sure.
Down into the left. But then you bring in McCarthy, and the Philly guy, went to school in Philly, went to university in Philly, was a part of the system in Philly, goes up against his old team. You can't, this is almost John Scottish in the NHL All-Star game, where you have somebody coming out of right field and going front and center, and you can't write this ish any better at points, I think.
And it's it's a script in Hollywood that I'm not sure it would get greenlit, right? Because you'd be like, come on, we're gonna expect this to be the case, but yeah, no, yeah, and you know what? We glossed over the Bale goal, right? Which was incredible.
I'm working in time. I'm going in time forward.
Yeah, right. But yeah, and to McCarthy, yeah, look, former Union guy that lifelong sort of backup guy, right? Did get some starting minutes at Miami for a little bit. Obviously that changed. Signs a 1-year deal out at LAFC, obviously to be the backup. Very much was the backup, had one regular season game, one League's Cup showcase match as well, and thrust into the spotlight, right? Incredible. I mean, the whole, as you said, right? If you I think the whole match itself was riveting, right? But like if you take out, like you mentioned, the first 60 minutes and you go for the last 60 plus, really, because of the Crépeau injury, now it's like almost 130 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Then PK's like, credit to like Stu Holden right after it, like it and Alexi Lalas, like best MLS Cup match ever, and you could argue the greatest MLS match ever, right? Because of the drama. Now, I will say, at least for me, the best regular season match that I have ever been to was that old Galaxy. It was Beckham's first trip to the Meadowlands.
Yeah,
if you remember that one, it was like 5-4, I think, with the Red Bulls, where Josie scores, Juan Pablo Angel scores, Beckham scores. He shushes the crowd. There's like 60,000 people there. That was amazing. That was incredible stuff. But obviously that was just for 3 points. This was for so much more. So
yeah. And now, so when Bale comes in, I mean, I think at least this time, perhaps Carlos Vela shook Steve Cherundolo's hand on the way out.
Yes.
Did you have the vibe when Bale came in that it was going to come down to a Bale moment? Well, just because it was like, well, everything else has happened, so it may as well just come down to Gareth Bale. Did you have that vibe?
No, obviously after it happens, then you start to think back. Oh yeah, right. He's that guy in these moments. But because he's been such a non-factor for them, no, right? Like you figure if he gets a half a chance or a touch on the ball, maybe he just squanders it, right? Or it's a kick that goes awry, or he just never gets the touch because they tackle him. So no, I wasn't, right? Because he hasn't shown that for LAFC.
Yeah.
until the biggest moment in the club's history.
Until. And then you get into PKs, and McCarthy's been subbed in before
Yep.
to be that PK specialist. And in the order, coming out of the blocks, it looked like Teo wanted nothing to do with it. It really did. He just had that look on his. He had that holy bleep moment on his face, or the o bleep or the o-ish moment. That he just did not. He looked like he had something bad at halftime. It was like the banana that they gave him and the peanut butter and jelly sandwich did not mix, and he did not look like he wanted to be there. And you're sitting there going, okay, all right, we see what's going on. But then Gazdag slips. And this goes to that script that you're talking about. Everything there, it's like you get a lead off and you're thinking, okay, it's Phillies. And then Philly has a moment where Gazdag sends it over to the Coliseum where everybody's parked. And then it's McCarthy and just the back and forth. Yeah, I don't think that this script would get greenlit under any circumstance.
Yeah, no. And like, it's funny because now that it's happened, like, I don't know who plays him, but now you could see the movie, right? Like, you could see him, in the hot tub, he was saying before the match, right? Like watching some videos of PKs, like, why, right? Like, you're not going to come in, dude. Like, Crepo's he's the guy, right? And you could almost see probably one of his teammates, right? Like in this McCarthy the movie, whatever you want to call it, right? Like,
yeah, McCarthy the movie, go for it. Yeah.
John, what are you watching? Some TikTok. Nah, man, I'm watching the PKs. All right, you have fun there, bud. And then sure enough, he's the unlikeliest of heroes. I've had some dealings with him in the past. It's so easy to root for him, right? Like, he's such a fun guy. And then even in the post match, right? Like his press conference, like, there's really no filter. He is who he is. He's real, right? Like, I didn't even know what he was eating, but he was like, sorry guys, I'm hungry. He talked about how Ilya scared the ish out of him.
Scared the ish out of him, no doubt.
Didn't realize it was the end of it. Talked about how he was a goofy kid from Philly, like, just awesome stuff.
Well, and then on the field where Crepeau, I guess, is in the ambulance and they're FaceTiming with him from the field, and everybody's getting to share that moment with Crepeau as he's in the ambulance heading to the hospital.
Yeah, and McCarthy was asked, like, what did you say to him? He's like, or what did he say to you? He's like, I couldn't hear him. Sorry, he's like, sorry, I didn't hear him.
Because I remember everything outbound, because I remember that one piece of video where everybody is just sitting there and they're going to Crepeau, and it's like, well, I love you, I love you, man. I love you, man. You had all of that kind of that oneness there. When from 30,000 feet, when you look at this season for Major League Soccer, what do you think outside of the wildest MLS Cup and one of the most viewed, greatest games ever in the history of the league? When you look at this season, what are your takeaways?
I think you could argue it was the best in league's history. I mean, just from a championship perspective, right? Like, MLS finally, got through in the Champions League, right? Like, and that goes back, obviously, to kind of the start of this season where Seattle somehow wins it, right? And there were great runs before that. I would make the argument that NYCFC at the time, had they not lost to Seattle, I think they would have maybe been that team to win it. I think they were that good at that portion of the season, and then there's so many great storylines throughout the year, right? Like, you had your transfer rumors, and then huge names leaving, right? Like, led by Matt Turner, of course, going to Arsenal, and then a huge drama, and then what would New England do, right? Well, they obviously were horrible, and then could Philly finally break through, and would LAFC set the new record, and all of a sudden Bale comes in, right? And what does that do to the chemistry? Will Vela get re-signed? Like, is Austin for real? Right? That was a question we talked about at the very beginning of the season after like 2 wins.
Yeah.
We had no idea that Cincinnati would emerge as they did, right? Like they were the wooden spoon running, and suddenly they did it. We saw Higuain go from a guy who was relegated to the bench and not happy about it to carrying Inter Miami on his back and them getting into the playoffs. So, I feel like, and that's just, I think there's so many more storylines, obviously, but those are some of the biggest that kind of flash back to mind. And I can't say, I would dare someone to say that there was a point in the season where you were like, man, this is just dragging, because it didn't, right? Like it was every week there was something else that felt like another big storyline emerged, another big game to look forward to. So,
yeah, I mean, you sit there and you look at that LAFC and the conversations from. Oh, by the way, who's the mug today? Is it your Yankees mug or?
No, it's grateful. I'm grateful for the season.
There we go. The grateful mug with Dylan Butler at Dylan_Butler at MLS Soccer.com and OSDB Sports, hanging out with us, wrapping up a bow on the Major League Soccer season. I mean, you look at LAFC with all the shiny things that they brought in, the conversation that Ernst Tanner decided to elevate as a part of the LAFC discussions. Philadelphia doing things their own way, being their own CONCACAF selves on a daily basis. And it's all the different individual personalities. Austin FC, you mentioned Austin. What's it like for them with their run? And
Montreal, even, right? I didn't even talk about them, but they emerged as a huge team. But now, I mean, they lose Mihailovic.
Yeah.
I thought that Wilfred Nancy should have been the coach of the year. I voted for him for that. He did an incredible job with them as well. They got back into the conversation. We saw the moves that Toronto made.
We did.
That energized them, right? It didn't get into the playoffs, but I think it brought some hope back into that fan base. So we saw, Joseph Martinez just knock over a whole bunch of chicken and rice and beans, and if I'm in that locker room, I'm probably fighting him for that.
It's like, dude,
I'm hungry. The match just ended.
Dude, I wasn't done.
Yeah.
We did talk. We talked about the Jeremy Filosa story in hour number 1 with Wilfred Nancy and the behind the scenes with Joey Saputo. Does your gut tell you that he stays in Montreal if Joey lays off, or does he go to Columbus? What's your gut tell you?
I'm of two minds, but you asked about the gut reaction. I think he goes.
Yeah.
Like, which again, like I think my head says that he stays because of all of the way that he's come up through Montreal and everything that comes with it. But yeah, I mean, the Saputo situation, I think a lot of coaches, players as well, but I think coaches especially, they love that challenge, right? Of the next thing, of the new thing.
Right.
And I think
especially when an owner won't leave you alone.
Yeah. And I think that's what Columbus presents, so I could see that. And then I mean, talk about a club in flux, right? Like, again, they were the 2 seed. They earned a home game because of it. Mm-hmm. They had so much good feelings up there in Montreal, and all of a sudden they lose their best player, and then perhaps now lose their manager, and they're kind of back to ground zero a little bit.
Yeah, and David's in this morning, and he reminds us of a U.S. Open Cup with a USL side final too with Sacramento Republic.
And even before that with Omaha, right? Union Omaha.
The Murder Owls of League One.
Having a great run. Not something that Atlanta fans were happy about, but Orlando gets their first.
Well, and then Orlando with the draw with CONCACAF Champions League. Thanks for dropping by.
Yeah.
you get the toughest Liga MX side in the whole bunch. It's like,
Yeah.
welcome to CONCACAF Champions League. You get to have the you get a Liga MX side.
And that's kind of too, right? Like again, so many more of these things are flooding in. But how about New England's season maybe being sidetracked right at the Champions League stage, right? Where they had that lead and they go on the road and they just, there you go.
Shooter's our resident Revs fan. In the chat, he has his follow-up response, but I'm just going to put that one in considering what his thought pattern was after the 3-0 lead. So basically, I skipped a response, but there's Shooter. Thanks for reminding me.
Sorry, Shooter.
And I mean, you look at all of these things, and Charlotte coming in.
Yeah, what a roller coaster that was, right?
Yeah, it's like if we are totally screwed, and that's not the word that Miguel Angel Ramirez used. Yeah. We are totally screwed. Oh my goodness!
And so is he because he was out.
Yeah, bye. And then they chased the playoffs as well. But I mean, you see once again, and the discussion about St. Louis City now coming in as Team 29 and now Team 30. Is it Vegas? Is it San Diego? You've got all of these markets coming in. I'm looking forward to seeing City Park and seeing what's going on. And if they don't play Country Grammar as a part of their celebration by Nelly, then something is seriously wrong, because when they did it, when the power was on and you could actually hear and see things, they actually had part of their social media playing the one chorus from Country Grammar, I'm from the Lou and I'm proud. And it just sounded absolutely perfect. If that's not their goal call, then there's something seriously wrong. But I mean, all of these different things now, the growth of Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about the ratings of the game for MLS Cup being, some of the largest that they've ever had, but going into these markets. And do you think now this is just random for me on a Wednesday, I know that'll surprise you. Do they go to 32 quickly? Franchises?
Probably, because you wish it wasn't financially driven reasoning, but those fees are very, very large at this point, right? Like to get in, so those expansion fees. So it's hard to kind of turn down that kind of money.
Yeah.
But to be fair, look, I don't think we're at 28 now. We're going to 29.
Mm-hmm.
There was always that concern, when you were at 12 and you were going, is this going to water it down, right? Is this going to water the product down? And I don't think it has, right? Like, I think there's been enough scouting, and whether it's the academy, domestic kids or the young DPs or what have you, like, we haven't seen that, right? I think it's been entertaining, and I think the product has been good.
And, with 30, Vegas has got to be, as Allegiant has shown itself to be a venue, it is like playing in a phone booth. And I think they've got to kind of get they got to get the jaws of life and kind of go like this to Allegiant. If it's going to be at Allegiant, you've got to come up with your own space. San Diego's not coming in. I wouldn't necessarily say at a lane 8, but I mean, they're coming in, and it sounds like they're serious. We've seen what goes on at Snapdragon with the Wave and the NWSL, and that the crowds are there, and the fact that you can get north of 20,000 in a stadium that seats 30, which I think is what you need at least right now for soccer specific in Major League Soccer. Where else do you think they should go? If you were master of everything expansion, to go 30, to go, all right, so 29 is St. Louis. 30 is either going to be Vegas or San Diego. Whoever comes up and sits there and says, yeah, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
To get to 32, who do you put in?
Good question. I mean, I obviously for the longest time, Sacramento was that team, right? And that organization. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they get back into the mix. I don't know where where in the country, or I don't think necessarily Canada. Like I don't, they have their league going. I don't think you go to like in Ottawa. I think it's a good question. Like you don't, what's Detroit? Actually, maybe that's the answer.
Okay.
Because I was, I think that could be an area that I've always I think they have a great sporting culture. They have good support for their lower league team. Maybe it's them.
David,
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, David with the Louisville, right?
I mean, Lynn family, they'll pack 20, but you've got to look at the idea of expanding the stadium. And because, I mean, right now it looks fairly solid. It would have to be in that one end zone that as you're watching the games, that open-ended area to add that set of stands there that takes away from the ambiance behind the goal. I mean, you've got Louisville that's a part of the discussion. Shooters thinking Buffalo because that, hey, if the Pagulas will sit there and want to bring in a new facility that's a part of Buffalo Billsness, that you could have multi-purpose and have the Bills play there and have the Stallions come back. And
I'm a big fan of that area. I like Buffalo.
Well, yeah, and so that once the Pagulas, they won't turn down the idea of a franchise doing that.
You'll have a great rivalry there with Toronto as well.
Yes, the battle of the Golden Horseshoe with TFC and Buffalo. I think that, and then the loser every year has to send their coach down Niagara Falls in a barrel.
There you go. You have the marketing aspect taken care of.
Sebastian Driussi, news has come out with Driussi that as folks on the show and then the timeline have been saying Major Leagues United. Looks like they're interested in Driussi, as well as two other clubs in the Bundesliga. Once again, you've got another talent from Major League Soccer who is being courted economically, because it's like 15 million euro seems to be the number that's being floated around right now. 15 million euro for Sebastian Driussi, and I'm guessing that's just a starting point. But once again, folks coming to Major League Soccer, finding economically well-priced talent to possibly move overseas.
And I think maybe one of Atlanta's favorite sons was the beginning of that, right? With Miggy, my guy, scoring goal after goal for my Newcastle.
It's amazing what happens when you have a coach who knows what to do with Miguel Almiron. We started that discussion earlier in the show. It's like, Steve Bruce, I don't know what to do with Miguel Almiron. Dude, seriously? Okay.
And by the way, somehow I didn't look after the weekend, but I've stayed away from looking at the English League table because I don't know if I'd be able to handle it. But somehow I saw that Newcastle were third. So I don't know. I don't know if it's sustainable.
I mean, but still, I mean, right now, and I will go ahead and do it. Yeah, you are third, sir. You're Newcastle, and let's see, you're a point ahead of Spurs. You've played 14 matches. You've only lost once, by the way, this year.
Yep.
7 wins, 6 draws, 1 loss, 27 points. You are in the European places, sir, with you and your Newcastle.
That's again, as a long-suffering fan,
Mike Ashley.
you wait for the other shoe, I think, at this point. But yeah, enjoying it, I guess, while it lasts.
Well, and to your point about Miguel Almiron, and this will be, because I don't want to take you into extra time and then to AET if we continue to keep going here, kind of like the match this past weekend. But once again, you got Major League Soccer teams who have this cycle, who find that economic talent, whether it's in Central and South America, bring them up, have the player understand, you do well, you move on, and Miguel Almiron, I think, should be the poster child for that kind of behavior and that kind of economic activity for the league. And that goes into, once again, abolishing the salary cap and adding a fourth DP and all those kinds of things. But I think that seeing those Miguel Almiron type players should, wave a big flag and sit there and you go like this to a lot of folks in Major League Soccer. This is the kind of economics that you can do. if you want to invest in a scouting system that can bring these kinds of players your way.
100%. And look at City Football Group, right? With the talent that they have as well. The move, Tati Castellanos being the beginning of that, and Talis Magno and Gabby Pereira, all those guys. Look at CM Fuentes at LAFC, right? All of these guys are prime examples of the way that you can do that, right? It doesn't have to, and that's one of the. I think that's again one of the beauties of the league, right? If you can go, full in, play your kids, invest heavily into your academy. You can bring in a Gareth Bale or an older established superstar. You can get players from Uruguay and Argentina and other parts of South America, and tell them that, yes, I know that you want to go to La Liga or you want to go to the Premier League, but here's a nice step that you can take to get there. And you could do all three, right? If you're like an LAFC or if you're one of the more ambitious clubs in the league, so that the different pathways to success, I think, is another thing that makes this a super fun league to cover.
Being a growth market is always a fun thing to talk about. All right, so now that the season is over, we are in Movement Central. I think we've got another hour and a half, as you and I are talking, in the initial window for player movement. Then we get into re-entry, we get into waivers, we get into the draft, we get into all these other kinds of things. There's that World Cup thing that's going on.
I didn't see, by the way, but I think, and maybe Shooter would love to hear this, but the rumors with Eric Williamson going to New England, I think that would be an amazing move for New England.
Yeah, I've heard Eric.
You get him with Polster and Heel. Like, what a midfield that is.
Yeah, and I've heard Eric Williamson as being moved. I did not hear the New England part.
Yeah.
So Shooter admits, people are happy about that. Don't know much about Williamson. So how would you break down the kind of player that Eric Williamson is, and Shooter's of a mind that you've got to dump Gustavo Bo as well?
I don't think, well, not to get this deal done, I don't think, but if you're talking in general moves,
in general,
of the off season, because I think Bo is limited in what he can do, right? Like in his effectiveness. But going back to Williamson, look, he was a guy. If he wasn't injured for a portion of the season, he would have very real consideration for this World Cup team, right? He's that good in that central midfield role. Like, think of like, he's not just a 6, like he's more of kind of an 8, think of almost like a Kellen Acosta type of a player. And again, you sit him next to Polster, and then obviously, Heel doesn't have to worry about any sort of defending, right? You have those two guys shuffling the ball from the back line up forward. I think it would be a terrific trio in the midfield for the Revs. But I think if you're, again, it's all rumor at this point. We have no idea what you have to give up to get him. Yeah. But he's certainly on the trade block, it would appear. And in such, I think you can get good value, because when that a team is trying to offload a player like that, that you have the advantage a little bit on the other side of it.
All right. So what are you up to now with the season over?
Yeah, just relaxing. There's no soccer happening, right? So
nothing whatsoever.
Next big competition, we'll be all over that. For OSDB, I will this past Monday, did a bit of a fun dive into the greatest MLS Cup match ever, and all the storylines that we talked about. This Monday, I think it'll be about the U.S. roster, which is revealed today, right? A couple hours from now, 5 o'clock, I think it is.
Yep, 5 o'clock.
And then just World Cup coverage from there on the high school football front. Wrapping up, we've got semifinals coming up this weekend, scheduled for Friday, but there's talk of a storm coming through. That game might get moved to Saturday night, but it's Chaminade and St. Anthony's, which is one of the biggest rivalries in our region. So that should be fun. And then that's supposed to be Friday night, and then Saturday afternoon I have in the division just below that one, Holy Trinity taking on Fordham Prep. All of this will then go on to the championship Saturday, November 19th, where we have the triple header day, where it's 11, 2, and 5.
Okay.
3 championship games there. So.
Yep. For us down here in Georgia, it is the week after the SEC championship, and it's 3 days, and it is 11 championship games. We have flag football on the first day, and then it is 2, and then it is 3 and 3. It's flag football and a doubleheader on Thursday, triple header Friday, triple header Saturday, and then I go to Waffle House at about 12:30 Saturday morning because I will have lost 10 pounds in that 3 days because I can't eat.
That's funny. You can't. It's hard to during a game.
Well, and since I'm hosting the entire thing,
yeah,
I can't like duck out and get a meal and then come back and then stand there because if you don't time it right, then there's problems. And so I literally power bar and kickstart my way through the entire weekend. And then maybe eat back at the hotel before I crash and then have to wake up and go back too. So no, it is getting toward the end of the season. So obviously, Dylan, we will be knocking on your door as much as you will allow us to continue knocking on your door, because Wednesdays with Dylan is always fun to catch up with you with everything going on, and especially with that tournament coming up in short order. Thanks for coming on again. I know
with MLS, there'll still be plenty to talk about.
And now that I've taken you into AET, as I said, I wouldn't do. Enjoy the coffee out of the mug. Is that cup number 1 or 2, by the way?
2, two and done.
All right.
I'm a 2 coffee guy.
All right. So go enjoy the rest of your second cup, and we'll catch up with you next week, my friend.
All right, John.